say I ain't no good, and I'm crazy as a loon. Cause I shave my head in the morning, pick guitar in the afternoon. Just like old Chief and Charlie, I like to lay around in the shade. Well, I ain't got no money, but you better believe I got it made. Cause I ain't asking nobody for nothing if I can't get it on my own. If you don't like the way I'm living, just leave this bald-headed country boy alone.
What's up, folks? Thank y'all for tuning into the Josh Terry Podcast. I want to give a big thank you to each and every one of our sponsors: 3B Construction and Roofing, Your Choice Healthcare, Lori's Dive-In, DPF Alternatives, Nobles Networking, Project K9 Hero, Cottonfield Grill, Pearl Promoting. Shout out to my girl, Miss Anna. Thank you for everything you do, darling. Backroad Park and Event Venue. Hello to Mr. Kevin and Ty. Kevin, thank you very much for letting us use your beach house next week. I hope we don't mess it up too bad. And thank you, boys, for coming and being part of it. Cashman's Pub, my dude Ron, Down Yonder Hat Code, Deep South Chemicals. Hey there, Mr. Scott. And Better Than Basic, Miss Erica, who does our website. You please go check that out now. Buy some merch. That's thejoshterypodcast.com. Thank you to each and every one of you guys. I know I didn't say all of your names, but we're going to change it up how we do this sometimes. We're going to do a couple episodes to where the ads run longer, and some of them, they run a little shorter. But either way, however it goes, thank you to all of y'all. You guys are such a big help for everything that I do. And thank you to each and every one of you listeners. Now, let's get into the show. What's up, folks? Thank y'all for tuning into the Josh Terry Podcast. This is my third show of today. We have had a great day. This one will be coming out Friday on the 8th, but this show has been months in the making. I saw these guys play one song at the local, didn't know who they were, missed their whole set, was blown away by the last song that I heard, and then found them again on TikTok, just blowing my fucking mind. If y'all have listened to the show ever, you know I love traditional country. And these boys right here are some of my favorites. They're actually playing my birthday round next week in Nashville at Live Oak too, so y'all should come out on the 13th. But I'd like to introduce y'all to the Reeves brothers. What is up, boys?
What's up, Josh? Thanks for having us, man. We appreciate this.
Man,
man, we're happy we got connected with you.
Y'all even look like real country artists. And I mean that like it's not one of those I got to think that somebody's going to get on here and they got white cowboy boots and some glitter all over them. You guys are the real deal.
Oh,
Josh, I would kill for a white pair of cowboy boots with glitter all over them. I'd feel just like David Allen Coe.
Oh, man. So fun fact is I'm getting a sleeve right now, a tattoo sleeve, and I've got my first two pieces, and it's my favorite country artist of all time. And the first one that I got is Keith Whitley. I got a Kentucky Bluebird holding a guitar. He's my all-time favorite. Then I've got a possum for George Jones, and it's got no show underneath it. But my next one that's going on my elbow is David Allen Coe's rhinestone belt buckle.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yes.
Yeah, I love me some David Allen Coe.
Oh, man, he is he's gotten such a bad rep over certain stupid things, but man, like there is some of the most, regardless of his attitude and everything else, his music and his writing is some of the greatest in country music, bar none.
Yeah, him and old Paycheck. Paycheck is one of my favorites too. And I put them hand in hand together.
Oh,
amen.
Sure.
Yeah.
So what are you guys up to right now? It looks like one of y'all's out having a good time and the other one's at home being good boy.
Well,
that is what's happening.
I'm lucky enough and unfortunate enough to not have a girlfriend. So I'm at the bar hanging out. Matt is visiting his girlfriend.
What bar?
Yeah, I'm here in Arkansas. I'm in Arkansas right now with my girlfriend. I'm heading back tomorrow because funny enough, we got a gig at the local tomorrow night, 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. So I got to drive about 9 hours back to Nashville and do the gig. So yeah, I'm here being family man right now. Pulls out honky dogging.
What bar are you at, Cole?
I'm actually at Dee's Cocktail Lounge watching John Bird.
Okay. So
I came out here with a buddy of mine.
Nice. So how long have y'all been doing this? And I just hate that I don't know more about you guys, by the way. But how long have y'all been doing this?
That's what these podcasts are for. We started our whole life we've been doing it. Our dad was a country music entertainer starting in probably 1966 or 1967 out in California. And so when we were kids, he had just retired back to a little community called Bella Vista, Arkansas, and he sat out there for a while, and then eventually he got not reacquainted, but one of his old employers and a friend, Jan Jensen, called him and asked if he would move back to Nevada and be the house band at a venue called the Stage Shop Bar in Pahrump, and that was when I was 4 years old. So he kind of made a stipulation that he would come as long as it was okay if Matt and I were in the bar every night with him and got to be around the country music and be involved in it, because he was kind of wanting us to be involved in the music. And so he always kept it around us. So as soon as we moved back there, I think we were always at the bar and always playing and involved in the talent night. Every Sunday they had a talent night, and we'd be involved in that. And then we'd be in every night of the week. He played 5 nights a week when we first moved out there, and he would have us in every night playing.
That's cool. Y'all have such a unique sound, by the way. Like it's where I could have picked you up in the 70s and placed you in 2023. And it's like you were made for that generation. Did a lot of that influence come from y'all going around those bars?
Yeah, a lot of it I think came from that. I mean, that was what that was primarily his era in country music, was that 70s, 80s, like late 60s, early 80s was like his prime in country music. So that was what he was always doing every night, the Haggard and the Waylon and Charlie Rich, Charlie Pride, Conway Twitty, stuff like that.
Oh God, yes.
And I know I started playing guitar for him when I was 13, so I had to know all those songs. And then Cole started playing bass for our dad when Cole turned, about 13, and he had to know all the songs too. So we kind of just grew up having to know them all, and we were fortunate enough. We grew up also loving it while we had to learn it. So it worked out good for us.
How old are y'all now? Because I got a feeling you're going to be younger than I think you are.
I'm 28.
Yeah, Cole's 28, and I'm 30. I'll be 33 in October.
Yeah, if people were to sit there and listen to y'all, you look young. But hearing y'all play, I would have definitely thought like this was a band, or these are two brothers that we just happened to miss. It's been around forever.
Oh,
yeah, no,
we've been around forever, but a lot of people have missed us.
Are y'all just now getting it to where, or just now finding out that people are getting exposed to y'all?
Yeah, a lot of people are starting to get our fan base is starting to grow, but we've been fortunate enough in the last year and a half. We opened up that whole tour for Justin Moore, his Country On It tour. We were on a bunch of those dates, and then we got on. We're on Craig Morgan's current tour, the God Family and Country tour, and we're playing every show on that tour with Craig. So we've just been really, really lucky and been getting more exposed, and more people have been finding out about us. And there's more people doing, the TikTok stuff and the podcast stuff that have noticed us and kind of shined our light on all of their listeners, like yourself. And there's a lady, Nikki in Nashville, that has a TikTok where she kind of, pushes traditional country artists out there. And so there's a lot of people that are getting more involved in that, and I think it's helping us out a lot.
Yeah, y'all are definitely too that. I was talking about Brett Cherokee with somebody earlier today, and I'm a big Brett Cherokee fan. And it's where I feel like people like y'all, it's just going to take the right stage, the right platform, and y'all are going to really blow the hell up. It's the kind of music that everybody's craving, not the shit that we're getting pushed down our throats on terrestrial radio. It's actual country music being played. And I think that there's such a market for it now. And it just takes one time. I think it really just takes one time, and it just all changes for you guys.
Well, we're hoping to continue growing and continue to be able to be. We've relocated to Nashville, and we're just hoping that we can keep up with that because we've made a lot of connections through being here, and we've recently been spending some time with Wynonna Judd and getting to know her and her husband Cactus, and then Craig Morgan asked us to be on his new tour. So it's just really been an eye opener being here and being just more connected in with everyone. I know people give Nashville a bad rep for the modern country music, but there really is all walks of life in Nashville and a lot of traditional country here.
Yeah, it's just nobody. I'm not saying nobody wants to push it because there's 100 of me. Like I'm not the only person that sits there and wants to die on that cross. But it just to me seems like the people who want to push traditional country are the ones who might not have the biggest social media presence. So it takes a little bit longer for people to catch on to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And even the guys that, started off, I feel like really pushing traditional country have gotten caught up in things that aren't really, they're more Americana than they are traditional country. So then I know when we released our last album that was, we were trying to release it and a bunch of people like that were like, well, this is just too country. And it's like, well, that's what you push. And it's more that they're kind of wanting to push an edgier version of country music that when you're doing just like straight up traditional country, you're like, well, you're not edgy, but we're just really trying to do country music. And so that makes it tough.
Well, I think you're just being genuine though and authentic. And that's what kind of shines through with your music. And even like y'all now, you can tell it's not a gimmick. It's not an act. This is who you are. And a lot of people that try to do the traditional country, like you can see through that shit so quick and be like, oh no, they're just, they're trying to be different, but they're not authentic.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's when we first got to town, one of the first people that we sat and talked with, he said something that stuck with me. He said, you can only fake it for so long until who you are comes out. And I agree with that. I know several artists that have told me firsthand, we're riding a bandwagon. Like it's popular right now. It's underground and we like being involved in the underground scene and the cool stuff that's going on. And when that changes, we'll change with it. If it's 70s country, if it's 90s country, whatever it is, we'll go with it.
Yeah.
And that's not our deal. We just kind of do what we do.
Yeah. I have developed in the past probably year a sneaky obsession with 80s country for some reason. Ronnie Millsap and all that. I guess I just miss somehow. Like Ronnie wasn't one that like I grew up listening to, but there's Earl Thomas Conley, all this stuff from the 80s. Like it's just you guys remind me a lot of that.
Oh, those guys were badass. I was on a plane the other day when Matt and I were, and our manager flew to Wyoming for a show, and I was texting our old steel player, a kid named Caleb Mello, and we were going back and forth sending each other some Marty Robbins records that Billy Sherrill had produced. And I said, man, nobody's cornering that market of the 70s and early 80s country music that had synthesizer in it and like horn sections, but it still had that country feel. But it had that pop feel too, that crossover country stuff at that time was killer. Kenny Rogers, Glenn Campbell, all of them were, Ronnie Millsap, all those guys were doing that cool thing at that time.
Yeah, it's almost when you listen back to it, it's weird. And you can hear somebody like in the back of your head saying, you had some old school country artist that was like, this shit ain't country. And now today we're like, this is fucking amazing. This is country music.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, our dad used to make fun of those people. I mean, it was like the people he would like. He used to make fun of Johnny Lee, or our dad would. He's like, "Oh, Johnny Lee didn't know country music. That was a bunch of urban cowboy bullshit," you know. And now you listen back to what they were talking about at the time, and you're thinking, "This is country music." You know, I mean, if country music was Johnny Lee and Mickey Gilley country music again, it would be amazing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, but
well, I think country music isn't always about the instruments. I think it's always been about the storytelling. I think that it really doesn't matter what's behind the artist if they're telling a real story that connects with people. I think to where now
100%.
I think now some of the shit that they call country and they're trying to tell you that it's country. It's not that it's bad. I'm sure it works for somebody. I mean, the chart showed that some of that shit really works for people, but it's where it doesn't have a story behind it. I have no connection with it. That's why I don't like it.
Yeah. Cole knows I've said this like 20 times in about the past 2 weeks, but that's what I was saying about, like, there's people who will talk shit about like early 2000s country, but man, if you go and listen to like a song like The Impossible by Joe Nichols, like, that is such a great story song. Like, yeah, I mean, you don't have to like the era of country music, but if you actually love country music, that should touch you somewhere in your heart, because it does. I mean, it's a phenomenal story song, you know, or Three Wooden Crosses or something like that, you know. And I think you're right. I think, you know, every era of country music has somewhere you're going to find somebody who's writing great country music, you know, for that era.
Yeah, anybody that tells me that they don't like Joe Nichols, I about want to kick them. Joe Nichols has some of my favorite. Talk Me Out of Tampa is one of my all-time favorite songs. And
dude, Joe Nichols is amazing.
Oh my God. Even like what is the name of that song? He wrote a song and it's like My Old Friend or something, where he's losing.
Today I said goodbye to an old friend of mine.
Yep, that's it right there. That song, if it does not bring you to tears and just touch you, I don't want to ever listen to the song again.
Yeah, about him quitting drinking.
Yeah, it's so fucking good.
Yeah, that's a great tune. I remember the music video of him on the piano when that came out.
Oh, I've never seen the music video.
Yeah, I think he's sitting on a piano today. I said something or did something I never thought I'd do. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, speaking of sober and up songs, the one y'all got, the Sober Up to Face the Night.
Yeah.
Yeah. You guys, I'm telling you, you guys have got some songs that when I play for my friends. So my studio is still in Georgia. I'm just in Nashville once a month recording for a week at a time with artists and doing our shows at Live Oak and other places. And y'all are ones that I always play for my friends back home. Like we're riding dirt roads or we're doing whatever. And most of the time they automatically think that it's not a current group, like a current duo or whatever. They're always like, oh, they've got to be old. And it just seems like even the one that y'all just recently dropped, the Medicine Man song, every one that y'all put out is a banger. I have yet to have anybody be like, yeah, I don't really like this
one. Oh man, well, we appreciate that. And we appreciate you showing our music to people and helping get it out there, because that's a struggle getting it out there and getting something weird happened, you know. And I'm just throwing this off topic, you know, our Spotify. Who the hell knows how that works? I don't know. but man, the other day we were getting like randomly for 3 days in a row, we were getting like every time we looked at our Spotify artist account, we were getting like 45 people were listening to our song at all times.
Yeah.
And Matt and I were talking, and it was like what is going on here, you know? And then all of a sudden it just shut down. It went back to normal. And so, you know, just who knows what gets them promoting your music out to people's radio stations. But I feel like it's, you know, got to be something to do with people talking about you and turning your music on. And then it shows, oh, well, there's a bunch of people listening to your music.
Yeah. Well,
and that's been our goal, because it's hard to afford a publicist and everything that a lot of other artists are doing.
Well, I don't think you need one in this day and age, to be honest with you. I'm a big believer in so what I do for my riders rounds. Y'all figure it out next week. But like, I take the people that I want to push, the people that I like, and I put them in a room with social media personalities that have huge followings. Because the sad thing is like, if you're a creative person like you guys, you're not always good at social media. You're not. It's hard because you're focused and you're good at music. It's very hard to do both of those things. So what I try to do is get these social media personalities to share all of your stuff and be part of our shows, to where all of a sudden, you know, you've got 2 or 3 girls that are in the crowd that's got a couple million followers each on TikTok and shit, and they're sharing the Reeves Brothers stuff because they like it. They just didn't know that they liked it before.
Yeah, that's amazing.
But
that's
also
super cool.
But also too, all it would take, like I said, because of the stupid algorithms and all that bullshit that we have on Instagram, TikTok, and all that kind of stuff, there's no excuse why you guys shouldn't be one of those getting millions of views. Because I know those are you're the type of artists that people want to listen to. And it just takes the right person showing. And like, I'm not always the right person, don't get me wrong. But if I'm going to work in this industry and I'm going to work around artists, I want to push the people that I think need to be pushed. So that's kind of my way of, you scratch my back and do a show and play around for us. We want to make sure that you guys get exposure to where maybe you wouldn't have got it before.
Well, man, we appreciate that like so much. And that's a killer way just to look at it, man. And that reminds us, our dad used to talk about being in Los Angeles, and he was like, man, everybody was just such a helping community there. Like everybody was trying to, if you couldn't do a gig, you'd call somebody else and be like, oh, well, my friend over here, he can do it, and it was kind of that way back then, that's when Johnny Paycheck and like Vern Gosdin and guys like that were roaming around, LA, and they were all just trying to make it, making $30 to $50 a night back in the 60s.
And I love that genre, and I love how much they helped each other and how much they pushed.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I think,
do too.
And that's where I think like we need more of that now. Like I know people have their groups and shit they write with and all that kind of stuff. But even me and our group that we're around and we write with, it's like all of a sudden I'll hear somebody like y'all and it's like, I want to write a fucking song for them. And I want to write it the way that they sing it and the way that they put it out. And I feel like that's all they used to do is scratch each other's backs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Think about Merle Haggard getting started off of a Wayne Stewart song and asking Wayne Stewart if he could record it.
Yeah.
They're saying, man, how much do you like me? Wayne Stewart's like, I like you a lot. He goes, would you like me enough to let me cut that song of yours before you do?
I love stories like that. Well, when y'all first, how long have y'all been in Nashville, by the way?
A year and a half.
Just over a year?
Yeah, not even a year and a half.
We got here last July. Yeah, about 14 months.
I got you.
We moved there the 4th of July. We moved to Nashville.
Oh, absolutely. So I got a question for y'all for next week, by the way, since y'all are playing the round. So my round next week, by the way, is weird as shit. So everybody knows that's done our shows for the past couple years up there is I love to hear the songs that got you in the country, the songs that nobody else requests you to play. Like I have a bunch of up and coming artists that'll come in there and play and they'll be like, oh, let me play you this one that's not an original, but it's something that they get requested to play on Broadway all the time. And I tell them, I don't want to hear that shit. Like, I want to hear what made you get into country music. So I was actually going to see if you guys would be cool with it. If I give y'all the last hour of the show next week from 5 to 6, if y'all just wanted to get there and play whatever the hell y'all wanted to for an hour.
Yeah, we'd love to.
Yeah, we'd love to. Absolutely love that.
Well, cool. Well, that seals it. That makes it Like on our last one, we had Bobby Pinson and Jason Michael Carroll and Chad Prather get up there and end the show. And they wanted to keep going. But this was a 5 to 11 show. This one, the one we're doing next week, is earlier because we've got some stuff we got to do later at night. But I was just thinking, because to y'all now, this is a job. So we probably get requests, even though I know you probably hate paying this shit or whatever. I don't blame you one bit. But there's a lot of people that don't just get to go play shows the way they want to anymore. So I try to make it to when an artist comes and does anything with us, you get to do whatever the hell you want to. Like if you want to get there, you want to play old George Jones songs or Keith Whitley or Merle, I want you to feel free to do whatever the hell you want to with us. I don't want it to just be a job or whatever when you're around us. So I was actually going to be like, hey, guys, you want to do that? So I appreciate it if y'all wouldn't mind.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, man, we cannot wait for that.
What was the first song y'all put out in Nashville that got you any attention?
Well, Josh, we're still waiting for a song to get attention that we put
out. I have a hard time believing it.
Yeah, I think one that got a lot of attention. We didn't release this when we were in Nashville. We actually, I'll tell you kind of a little bit of our backstory just about our last album, which I feel like was every album we've done 3 records, and I think every album we've done had its benefits of, or looking back, helped us in one way or another. Our first record just got our feet wet, and, having a music career, and got us I think it helped a lot with us getting nominated for the Ameripolitan Honky Tonk Band of the Year. And then we went to Memphis and we won that. And through that kind of was the purpose of us starting to really tour. And because we got to meet a lot of contacts at Ameripolitan in Memphis, through Dale Watson and all of his friends that were there and people that own venues, and they all booked us. So our last record, and it entered through Ameripolitan, we got to know a guy named Kevin Skurla, who produced our last record and has produced all of our singles since then. But we went in and cut a record. We were supposed to go in and record one song. He said, next time you guys come to Texas, come down and I'd love to record you guys a song. And we ended up staying 2 weeks and started working on a new record. And it truly, I mean, when we got together, we were kind of immediate friends. And so we started working on that record, and we released our first single off of it was a thing called 100 Proof Honky Tonk that a friend of ours, Sean Oler, wrote. And that started to get us some attention. And then that kind of remained our most played song for a long time, for a couple of years. And then last year through TikTok, a song of ours called I'm Still Crazy, the song that starts off, this old Budweiser beer, it's tasting better all the time. That kind of took off in a big way on TikTok. And then that's been recently our most played song. And it's kind of amazing because we've been at shows and people show up, off of, say, oh, we drove down because we're big fans of you guys. We discovered you guys on TikTok, and it's kind of crazy.
That's cool, dude. I was just thinking, I just remembered that I just messaged him the other day. Aren't y'all friends with Chili Dog? Aren't y'all
Chili
friends with
Dog,
Michael?
Well, it's funny. I mean, yeah, I guess so. We
spent a day on a boat with Chili Dog.
That's what I was going to say.
We've met him once or twice, and then we showed up at a friend's boat the other day, and he was there, and we ended up spending the whole day, and we picked music on the boat and hung out and had a good time.
Yeah, for some reason it just hit me that I messaged Michael the other day, and when I saw y'all on the boat with him, because this is like still before I had got y'all to actually agree to doing the show, and I was like, all right, Chili, I need you to hook us up with these boys. He stays with us and hangs out with us when we're up there. And
that's awesome.
But you said Dale Watson a while ago, right?
Yeah.
All right. So first time I ever went to Fort Worth, we went to a bar and he happened to be playing there. And he was all dressed up like he always is, hair slicked back and all that good shit. And he said one of the funniest things I ever heard in a bar, somebody hollered at him to play something else. And for those that don't know, Dale Watson ain't the person you fucking holler at and tell him to play something else. Dale hollers back at this person and is like, if you don't like George Jones, fuck you, get out. And I'm telling you, I about died right there because I'd never heard an artist talk to anybody like that before. And then I dived into who Dale was because I didn't really know him. And I was like, this dude's a badass. So that's cool that y'all were down there with him recording.
Dale is probably the best entertainer in country music right now. I mean, he, in my opinion, I always tell people that, you know, he has a way with people, and everybody loves Dale Watson. You know, if you don't like Dale's music, go to a show, because you'll learn to like him after you go to a show of his. He's just spontaneous, you know, which I respect him a lot, because I feel like Matt and I are probably one of the only bands that don't use a set list. I mean, we get up and we do, I mean, one song after another without a set list and just fill out the crowd and do whatever we do. And that's the way he does. You know, and it's just, he knows every song that you can think of. It's just really cool.
I've never heard of anybody going on stage without a set list.
Yeah, that, man, our dad used to, when we were kids, he would always talk, you know, about set lists, and he said, man, you can't write a set list that's gonna fill out your audience before a show. You know, he's like, people's emotions change and the way they feel during a show, and you can feel that by reading the crowd. And gosh, growing up, I can remember our dad, he would go from He Stopped Loving Her Today to Great Balls of Fire, you know. Ooh. And stop in the middle of a song and just switch over, and because he could tell, you know, the crowd's just, this isn't where they're at right now.
So is the kind of music that y'all play what your dad normally played?
Yeah, yes and no. I think a lot of it we learned through him, and then, you know, we've added a lot of stuff that I don't know. He was around when it was top 40 country, you know, and he knew a lot. He would go further down the rabbit hole, I think, of stuff that Matt and I don't necessarily think is cool. You know, like,
our dad was born in 1937. So, like, I mean, Jimmie Rodgers and the Carter Family and like old school stuff that now, like, it's hard for me. It ain't going to keep my attention like Merle Haggard or Waylon Jennings. Like, our dad could sit there and listen to every song Jimmie Rodgers recorded, or an Eddie Arnold, you know, do Cattle Call all day and think, my God, this is the greatest music I've ever heard.
Yeah, I mean, you weren't going to get out of go to one of our dad's show with that. You know, he'd, out where the bright lights are glowing, I'm drawn like a moth to a flame, and he'd do all the Jim Reeves stuff, and that's really not my bag. I mean, I appreciate and respect what those guys did for country music, and but it's just, you know, he would go on medleys of Jim Reeves or Hank Williams or Hank Snow, and that's not my thing. I don't connect with it the way he did. You know, I connect with Merle Haggard music and Hank Jr. and all of those guys much more than I do a Hank Sr. or Jimmie Rodgers or Jim Reeves or Ferlin Husky, all of those people. You know, it's just not. So we picked up a lot of stuff from him, but a lot of stuff, you know, we've just, through listening to that kind of music, discovered, like, our dad wouldn't have been up doing David Allan Coe stuff. And,
well, the reason why I ask, it just seems like your dad was a huge influence on y'all musically.
Oh, he was. Yeah.
I just didn't.
Yeah, he very much was.
I just didn't know what his set list or what he would play would be, is why I was curious.
I'll tell you, probably 80% of the songs we play are songs that were in our dad's set list. But then, you know, that other 20% of the other stuff, you know, our dad would do Good Hearted Woman and then go to, oh, please release me, let me go. And, you know, then he may start doing, you know, Elvis in the Ghetto, and then go from that to On the Road Again. Just can't wait to get on the road again. So,
yeah, I mean, he would do the Drifters, the Platters. I mean, He was doing Tom
just his
Jones.
era of music.
Yeah, he wasn't afraid to pull out some Engelbert Humperdinck.
Yeah.
No, we try to keep it a little bit more solid, country gold than I guess our dad did.
Yeah, there's a bunch of that stuff you mentioned I can't get into whatsoever. I think there's about 4 or 5 Hank Sr. songs that I really like. Outside of that, I can't get into it.
Well, I've had a thing for a long time with the Hank Sr. thing. I'm feeling like, and I hate to say this, I just feel like most people are bullshitting and posing when all they do is, oh, well, Hank Sr. is, he's the greatest in the world. It's like, no, in 1953 he was.
Yeah.
In 1953, when he was singing about topics that nobody else would touch, and he was writing songs that related to that, I wholeheartedly agree, and that's why I respect what he did. But it's just hard for me to think that there's a majority of people that would rather listen to Hank Williams Sr. than Hank Jr.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just more relatable because it's closer to a generation. And no matter how hard you want to be, I wear bell bottoms around, I wear 70s clothes. And no matter how hard you want to roll up your Levi's and do that whole bit or wear bell bottom jeans, you can only relate with another generation. Just like we were talking with our dad, of us not being able to connect with that because that's just not your generation. And that is not the way the world is anymore. And you can't connect with it on that level. And that's why it's hard for me. It's like, I got into it with a guy probably a year or two ago. He got on and got all bent out of shape because I expressed my opinion on Hank Sr. And I said, well, go ahead and name me top 10, your top 10 Hank Sr. songs. And he couldn't. And I said, well, then, so you're really not a Hank Sr. fan.
Yeah.
You're just a bullshitter. And he's like, well, no. Do you not realize what he did? And I said, well, that's not what it is. What somebody does for anything has nothing to do as if you're a fan. I can respect somebody for them helping evolve country music or whatever that might be. But, I'm not going to lie and say that I'm going to go out and buy all of Hank Sr.'s music and listen to him all day in a car.
Yeah, I think Hank is one of those, and I'm probably going to stick my foot in my mouth about the second one to y'all, but I think Hank is one of those, like Johnny Cash, that people like the story better than the music.
100%.
For sure.
Yeah, I love everything about Johnny Cash besides his music. He's got 2 or 3 that I absolutely like, but they're not like my diehard songs. And then Hank Sr., I love his story. Like my dad always, this was every time my dad would get good and tore up when I was a kid, which was quite often. Every time he'd get good and tore up, at the end of the night, he would play Hank Sr. But it would be like Lonesome Road, or what is it? One of them, I can't ever remember what the hell it's called.
Lost Highway?
Yeah, Lost Highway. Lost Highway
and
stuff like that. Like my dad would always get fucked up and play gospel like at the end of the night, right? And so that's where, like, if it's not one of those songs by Hank Sr., I'm not listening to it. And Johnny Cash, same way. Like there's really nothing.
Yeah.
Great stories. They were great for country music, but today, like it's just to me.
Well, and it's funny because we get requests for Johnny Cash, and I actually am I'm a big Johnny Cash fan. But like when you go any deeper than a Ring of Fire or Folsom Prison Blues, like if you get into like Ballad of a Teenage Queen or Give My Love to Rose or things like that, people have no idea you're even singing a Johnny Cash song, the people that are requesting. And it's like, oh, well, you're not a Johnny Cash fan. You just want me to sit up here and pretend like I'm a hard ass because you think Johnny Cash is a hard ass.
Yeah.
And it's like, instead of like, or like Flesh and Blood or Daddy Sang Bass, like they don't want you to sing Daddy Sang Bass when they requested you. Daddy
Sang Bass is my favorite one of his. That's like,
dude, I love it. Yeah.
And the little shoe shine boy. Those are the only 2 that I really. That's the only 2 I like by Johnny Cash.
Hey man, I'll be honest with you. I'll straight up listen to Chicken in Black.
Yeah, I don't even know if I've listened to that.
I mean, it's nothing but a 1980s comical Johnny Cash singing about him getting having brain surgery and then putting a chicken brain in his head and he gets, or this chicken gets they put the brain of a bank robber in this chicken or whatever, and it's hilarious. And I'm like, man, honestly, that's probably my favorite Johnny Cash tune. I'm like, I get more down with that than I do Folsom Prison Blues, because every time you're at the bar, you do it because, I mean, the crowd gets into it. But
yeah,
and people have turned that into, Matt and I have talked, and it's like you go into the bars and people play it, and they throw a bunch of overdrive on their guitar and they play this crazy guitar solo, and it's like, man, if you're gonna do it, just play it like Johnny Cash and Luther Perkins, but that's not what they want. They want the hard edge of Johnny Cash, but people's idea of people are so different. It's like, I mean, the only time Johnny Cash ever spent in a prison was when he was playing a concert in it.
Yeah.
He wasn't in prison. That was a thing forever, that people, acted like Johnny Cash spent time in prison, and he didn't.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the difference between him and Merle and Co. and the people that actually, when they say, or even Johnny Paycheck, when they actually sing about a prison, or they sing about something like this, like, no, I get it. Like, they did time, you didn't.
Oh, yeah. Dude, go listen to "Sing Me Back Home" by Merle Haggard.
Oh,
it's
God,
like that song right there grabs you. It's like, whoa, that's a story right there. And even it's funny to me, like Merle Haggard was known. It was known that he didn't want people to know that he had ever been in prison.
Yeah.
And I believe it was Johnny Cash that told him. And Matt, if you know the story, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Johnny Cash was the one that said, tell the people, because if you tell them, they can never hold it against you if they find out, and he was kind of the reason that Merle told everybody he had spent time, because Merle was ashamed in it and embarrassed. He was like, I don't want people to think that I'm an ex-convict. And then it kind of became a thing where, Johnny Cash was like, well, if you don't tell them and they find out, then they're going to hold it against you.
Can you imagine what would happen today if a country singer tried to come out of prison and record? Like, can you imagine the bullshit that person would catch?
Mm.
You can't.
It'd be a shit show.
Yeah,
having a massive record deal.
God, yeah. I mean, it's
because Merle Haggard was a legit, convict.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in a maximum security prison. He was in San Quentin.
Isn't that where who met who in prison? Was it Co and Merle that met in prison?
Oh, I don't. I know that Merle was there when
Merle saw Johnny Cash in prison.
Maybe that's
when Johnny Cash performed there.
Maybe that's just what it is. I thought there was a connection outside of that, but maybe that's all it is.
Yeah,
I don't really know. Go ahead.
You go ahead, Maddie.
Yeah, I don't really know. I know that a lot of people with the David Allan Coe thing that I really don't. I think David Allan Coe, nobody kind of knows. He was like up in Ohio or something in prison, and nobody really knows the terms of his prison sentence.
Yeah, I got a feeling Coe did some fucked up shit, to be real with you. I have dove more. YouTube has shown me more of David Allan Coe interviews than I ever needed to see.
Oh yeah.
Oh, dude, the one where he gets into the Mormon stuff is great. I don't know if you've got to that yet.
Haven't even seen that one. The one where he's talking about, if she don't act right, I'm gonna make her. Like, sometimes you just gotta raise your hand to make them act right. It's like, oh, I know why he's not in the Country Hall of Fame now, besides for the X-rated album. Like, he was wild, dude. And
we did it.
Go ahead,
Cole.
We opened a show for David Allan Coe when I was 16. And man, I learned all that I needed to know about David Allan Coe in the first 20 minutes of the show we opened. We showed up and I was setting up, and I was pretty excited to be opening for David Allan Coe because I was a big fan of his music, like now I lay me down to cheat on a woman I love so. I'm like, man, I love all of that stuff. And even as early like 1975 like albums, and he had I grew up. Our dad always sang a song. I've got to take a drink to keep from crying, and or shaking. And another Pretty Country song is what it's called. Matt and I actually recorded it for a David Allan Coe tribute album that I don't think it ever was made. But man, we got there, and I was super excited. And I'm 16 years old, and the photographer for the show goes, David Allan Coe was probably standing, I don't know, 10 feet from me, and this photographer was in between us, and he goes, hey, I want to get a picture of you and David Allan Coe. And David Allan Coe just turned and he goes, I don't want an effing picture with that kid. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, I don't want a picture with you either, brother. Don't worry about it. And I walked off, and I was like, man, what a prick, who does that to, I mean, I recognized at the time, I'm like, who does that to a 16-year-old? I mean, I knew, I'm like, man, I'm a kid. Which it didn't affect me because I still listen to David Allan Coe's music. I just think I think he's kind of a degenerate person. But yeah, man, you just don't. I've always felt you just don't treat people like that.
Yeah, I don't have a good David Allan Coe story. Like every time I've heard from anyone, and I'm in Georgia, I'm not far from him, and he's one of those dream guests to have on the show though, to where you could sit down and him really open up and be himself, but at the same time, it's like I'm scared to death he's gonna bite my fucking head off if I say one wrong thing. And it's almost to the point to where it's cool to be an asshole, but it's not cool to be that much of an asshole.
Yeah, it's like a lot of, and there's people that can carry. It's funny that there's certain people that can carry an image without that being who, and separated on a personal level. It's like musically, Waylon Jennings, to me, it's hard to get any tougher than Waylon Jennings musically. It's like, he just walks around like, if you talk to me, I'm going to punch you in the face.
Yeah.
And our dad spent a whole, KLAC used to have a disc jockey, Larry Scott, and he did an all-night trucking show that was recorded out of a club in Los Angeles that our dad played 6 nights a week called Dodge Saloon in 1974. And one night, Larry Scott told our dad, stick around because we got Waylon's coming in. He's going to sit all night and talk with us on the radio. And our dad always said he was the nicest guy that he could have ever ran across. He was like, man, he was yes, sir, and no, sir, and just the friendliest person, and treated us like we were his best friend, and I think that's cool. And I've heard a lot of great Waylon stories of people.
Yeah.
Oh, even our cousin met him in. Our cousin Scott, who's our manager, met him in, what was it, 99 or 2000, 2001, somewhere right before he died. And he was just standing out. Was it the Troubadour or Whiskey Go-Go? I can't remember.
Boy. Yeah, I can't remember either. He was up there. It was at Shooter's show.
Shooter had a show, and he said he was right down there. I think it might have been Sunset Boulevard or one of those in Hollywood. He said he was standing there, and our cousin knew who he was. There's a bunch of young kids at the show. Nobody knew who Waylon was. And he said, our cousin knew who it was because of his dad, our uncle. That's all he listened to is country music. And our cousin Scott's like, man, that's Waylon Jennings over there leaning up against the outside of this club. And he said, I walked over, and he was like, Waylon was like the salt of the earth to him, just the nicest guy ever. And so I think it's cool when somebody can carry an image. You can be the cool dude without, making people, ruining people's, just respect for you.
Yeah, we had Johnny Paycheck's son on the show like 2 weeks ago, and he told us about we talked about Waylon for a few minutes, and he said the same thing. He was like, growing up, like he was Uncle Waylon to us, and he was just the absolute nicest person ever.
Yeah,
I've never heard like an asshole Waylon story from anybody that was talking to him as a friend to friend. Now, maybe musically, or like, I know he walked off that show after the guy wouldn't get him on there and took up all of his time and things like that. Yeah, Tom Snyder, but anybody that just met Waylon like face to face, I've never heard a bad story. They were just like, oh, he'd cut up, and he was just like the coolest, nicest dude in the world, and Even the George Jones story, where he goes over there and George Jones tried to pick a fight with him, and Waylon tied him to a tree and was like, "Sober your ass up, George." Like, it wasn't like he didn't knock George Jones out. Like, he wanted him to sober up because it was his buddy.
You know what's crazy? So we've had Georgette on the show. We've had Johnny Paycheck's son John on the show now. The Tales from the Tour Bus. Have y'all seen that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
They talk about how much they hate it and how full of shit it is.
Oh, yeah.
And
I'm
everything.
sure.
But I still, like, it's hard for me not to turn it on at the studio. It's
because it's great.
God, it's so good. But at the same time,
yeah.
But I never thought of it like when they were telling me all the stories and everything when we did the shows with them. It was like, I have to remember when I idolize Keith Whitley or I idolize George Jones for their drinking and their partying and their wild ways and all this kind of shit. There were people that had to grow up with them as parents. And, and it's a completely different thing.
Sure. Well, dude, and just to me, it's like, when you talk about idolizing it and everything, and you kind of grow up and you're like, oh man, this guy's cool for this, or this guy's, oh, this guy's, he's a badass. And I think about Matt and I grew up in a totally different way because we just didn't, we didn't have. Our dad was like Mr. Business with his music, and he was. I've made a joke a couple of years ago. Somebody asked if our dad drank. I said I drank more last night than my dad probably drank in his whole life.
Wow.
And I mean, that was really true. I mean, I watched my dad take a drink maybe 4 times in my life, and it was like a drink. It wasn't, oh, my dad got drunk tonight. This doesn't really happen often. It was, oh, my dad had a beer tonight. This is really crazy. And he didn't smoke. He didn't smoke at all. He didn't. That wasn't his thing. And talking about people idolizing that, to me, it's like there was a time when that wasn't cool. Like all those people that bought a ticket to see George Jones, they weren't being like, oh man, George Jones is a hard ass. He didn't show up tonight. They were pissed that they paid $8.95 to see George Jones play at the O'Hara Arena in 1981, and he didn't show up. It's like they all, we're talking about blue collared people that are paying to see George Jones come to town, and this is their entertainment for the year or whatever. And George won't get off the bus because he's too drunk.
Yeah.
And I'll have to shoot you a picture of it. But I've got a newspaper. Our dad opened for George Jones.
Oh, that's cool.
In San Antonio, Texas, in 1983, and at the time, our dad was kind of getting a girl named Tiffany who had a hit called "I Think We're Alone Now." He got her started in the music business, and he was taking her around and helping her out when she was 10 to probably 14 years old, and he had got her booked on this show with him as the opener before our dad, and then our dad came out, and then it was supposed to be Jerry Lee Lewis and George Jones. Well, Jerry Lee Lewis had been partying and he blew his intestines out like a week or two before the show, and he had to cancel the show. So it put him down to Tiffany, our dad, and George Jones. And then Dad came out and did his show, and they come out and they're like George Jones and the Jones Boys, and there's no George Jones. And so the Jones Boys came out and started to do some of the songs, and then they started booing the band off the stage because they wanted George Jones. And I feel like it started with 4,500 people were at the show. And then the promoter walked over to our dad and said, do you know any George Jones songs that you can do? And Dad said, yeah, I know every George Jones song he'll do tonight. I'll go out and put on his show for him. And it quickly ended for our dad. They ended up booing our dad off the stage too. And obviously, because it's not George Jones.
Yeah, exactly.
And he said eventually then George Jones came out. Well, then George Jones's band wouldn't come out because they were pissed that they're like, we didn't do anything wrong, and they sat and booed us off the stage. We're not going out. Well, it became a big fiasco, and finally when everybody got together and came out, George Jones, our dad said the first thing he said when he walked on stage was he grabbed the mic and said, I might be a little inebriated, but don't worry, folks, I'm going to sing myself sober. And the promoter was pissed, and our dad said the first note he sang, he goes, he could out-sing me, too drunk to stand up when I'm sober, And he did the show, and in the newspaper it says Drunk Jones cycles off with girlfriend and bottle of tequila. He just like untrailered a motorcycle he was pulling in a trailer behind his tour bus and got on this Harley, and I guess with some chick from the show or whatever, and cycled off holding a bottle of tequila. And so anyway, our dad was quoted in the newspaper, of saying, I'll never work with George Jones again, because they wouldn't pay him his money for opening the show. And they said, well, nobody's getting paid on this show until we figure out why George Jones didn't come out on time. And our dad, he said, well, I can settle that for you real quick. He didn't come out because he was drunk, and I need my money because we've got a plane to catch back to California. And so it was a big deal. And our dad later, he said, I regretted saying that, I would never work with George Jones again in my life, because, he ended up straightening up and getting his stuff together, and it became a funny thing,
Him pulling off on a Harley with a bottle of tequila and a woman is the reason why I have I've got a tattoo and it says WWGJD. What would George Jones do? And I always ask myself that before every bad decision I've ever made.
I mean, there's something to say for those guys that did that, because if they probably wouldn't have lived that way, the feeling probably wouldn't have been there in a certain aspect. Even the songwriters, I won't mention any names, but Whitey Schaefer wrote a song called All My Exes Live in Texas. And when he was dying, somebody had asked for a little bit of help, on expenses or something. And some of the people in the industry here in Nashville said, we're not responsible for his bad choices. And the guy that was trying to help, he said, well, you know what? And this company had made millions off of his songs. And he said, if it wasn't for Whitey Schaefer's decisions he made, the song would have been called All My Ex Live in Texas, and it would have sucked.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's true, it's like the way they lived turned into the music that they wrote. And the reason that you can sit around, depressed and feeling down about your life and turn it on, and it, gives you that feeling.
Yeah. Around here, we listen to depressed songs to make us happy. Exactly.
Amen.
I look, there's not a happy song on my playlist. Never.
No.
It is. I can't listen to happy shit.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know. You guys have got a couple. I know we've talked about a lot of artists, and we'll get off here in a minute. But you guys have a bunch of those songs, though, that the way that we're talking about these older songs, how they make us feel, more people need to hear y'all's, because they make me feel, when I listen to y'all stuff, the same way. Like, you get the same energy, you get the same storytelling, you get just the same. It's hard to classify it or put a word on it, but it's just as good. Like, it's just stuff that maybe you don't know start to finish yet, but it's the same storytelling, and it's the same. It just grabs a hold of you and it doesn't let go. That's why I've been trying my damnedest to get y'all on the show. And because you could just tell, like, one day somebody's going to look at y'all and be like, that song right there made me. I always judge a song by if it makes me want to drink or not. And I mean it in the best way. Like, if I hear your song, it's either going to make me want to have a good time, or it's going to make me want to drown myself in a bottle of Buffalo Trace. But in a good way, like, it touches you.
Man, I'll drive around sometimes and listen to music to the point where it's like, I got to go to the bar and I got to listen. I got to go somewhere and find somewhere that a band's playing. And we had a buddy that, I mean, I'm all about turning your life to the Lord and that whole deal. And he did, and he's from Arkansas. Matt knows who I'm talking about. But he one time he said, he's like, man, I cannot listen to Johnny Paycheck without wanting to go get drunk and cheat on my wife.
Yeah.
And it's like, I mean, I get it. It's like, he's like, I that is not a part of my life anymore, because it can't be. I've turned my life to God, and that is the feeling I get when I listen to that music. And I know that. I don't listen to it.
This guy couldn't put Johnny Paycheck in his CD player because he was going to go out and find some nasty gal and like start schmoozing her, because he was just like, man, Johnny Paycheck makes me want to go to a bar, listen to some country music, and cheat.
I'm telling you, I could listen to Drunk on Arrival, or my favorite by him is Outlaw's Prayer. Outlaw's Prayer is my favorite Paycheck song. But
man, I'll tell you what, Josh, if you ever get a chance, listen to when I was 16 years old, there was a guy named Joe Willett. Rest his soul. He was, I mean, about the coolest dude you could ever meet. And he drank a 30-pack of beer a day, whether he was thirsty or not. And we'd sit around and he was Matt's drummer. And I would play bass for Matt. We'd go to this place called the Avi out in Laughlin, Nevada. And it was an Indian reservation casino. And I wasn't allowed to stick around after the show. I'd have to go back to the room. So he was like, you know what? I'm not partying if you can't party with me. So I'm going to start bringing a cooler and icing it down with beer. And at the end of the show, let's just tell the front desk we want our hotel rooms next to one another so we can party with each other. I'm like, you're 16 years old and this sounds about like the best time I could ever picture having. I'm like, the older dude, he was probably 60 at the time, late 50s. And I'm like, man, the older dude that knows about all this country music and he's this cool dude, he wants to hang with me, And I remember going back to his room one night and he cracked me open a beer and passed it to me. And he goes, man, I've just stumbled upon something that I haven't seen in 100 years and I want to play it for you. And he played me Johnny Paycheck live at the Lone Star Cafe. And it was a record called New York Town. And there's a song on it called Memory of a Memory.
It's above my head. It's literally above my head right now.
I'm looking at it right now.
That's
yeah,
that's it right there.
Yeah,
dude. Memory of a Memory is my all-time favorite Johnny Paycheck song. I try to do it as much as we can at shows too. It's just there's something about that opening line. I guess I owe the neighbors an explanation about the noise coming from this old house and me. I'm like, man, that's cool.
Dude, it doesn't get any better. But y'all realize like the stuff that y'all are putting out has the same hooks, the same feel, the same vibe of all these guys that we're talking about.
Well, we appreciate that.
I mean, I promise you, I'm not a kiss ass. If y'all were to listen to the show on most episodes, I sound like a cunt. I really do. I'm not the nicest person ever. I just know what is country to me. And I don't ever say that other shit is bad. I really don't. Like it's obviously got a market. It's obviously got a feel for people and they enjoy it, to each their own. But it's so hard to find guys like y'all, guys like Brett Cherokee. Bobby Pinson needs to put more shit out. I don't care if he just wants to ride or not. Like people like that are traditional, grab you by your heartstrings, by your gut country. And that's what y'all shit is. I just want y'all to really know that.
Well, we can't thank you enough because, and I think Matt feels the same way as I do. That's all you want is, and for me, I took up songwriting real serious. I don't know, probably right before we released the last record because of Dale Watson. And it was almost a bigger, I feel like, I don't know, maybe Matt will have an opinion on this. I feel like it was almost a bigger deal 6 or 7 years ago to write your own songs and record your own songs than it is now. It felt like to me at the time anyway, where it was like you were kind of a piss on if every song on your record wasn't written by you.
Yeah.
And I personally would get so wrapped up in other songs that I was writing stuff, but I would get so connected with other people's songs, like, well, the way they'd make me feel. Cause if you lived it and you write it, it doesn't feel the same way. The first time you hear Misery and Gin by Merle Haggard, you're thinking, good Lord, I'm going to run a needle through this thing playing it because it's, it's coming from a different perspective and it hits you different, when it's not you. And then I think at that point we started writing more because it was just a thing where it was like people would kind of like talk down to you because all your songs weren't written by you. So we started doing that more. And when that started happening, that was kind of a personal goal of mine, was to find just one person that would connect with something that we wrote the way I'm going to connect with putting on Back to the Barrooms by Merle Haggard or Serving 190 Proof. and that is about all you can hope for as a new songwriter, I think. And way Matt talked earlier about Joe Nichols and stuff like Bobby Pinson to me, you know, Bobby Pinson isn't doing 70s country music. He's doing his thing, and he's like one of my heroes in songwriting. But the day he released The Shave, if you've heard, you've heard it.
He released it on this show first. He released it on this show first.
I've seen the video.
Yeah.
Is there a video of that?
I think we recorded something when we were at Seagale recording with him, but I don't remember. But I know the first time that it was ever put out, it was on our show.
Dude, when he says that line, old as my dad when I was that young, watching a little boy disappear, smiling proud, fighting back tears like he did then when we were here. I hear him say, I'm like, dude, that the way he just crossed over every different view of the age, and your son being your age and you being your dad's age, it's like, whoa, that's songwriting. And yeah, man, it doesn't have to be. To me, songwriting is songwriting. I can listen to John Prine or Guy Clark. Like, my heroes really aren't like necessarily even what we do. You know, it's like we don't do Guy Clark and that stuff. You know, that's not our thing, because that's just not what we grew up on. But I feel like that stuff, and listening to Bobby Pinson and the way he can, like, I found piece by piece. It's like it's just a cool way of writing. And I try to pick up all that stuff from different people and then put it into life experiences.
Well, what I try to tell even like the young artists that I work with that come to the studio to write or hang out or whatever, it's with me, you got two different options. You either can write for now, or you can try to write something that people are going to still remember in 10 years from now. I like the legacy of stuff, of taking your time and doing it right and putting your heart and your soul down on paper, and it actually meaning something to you. Now, I understand everybody's got to make mailbox money or whatever, but
yeah,
you don't have to do that all the time for yourself. You can write for other people and try to get a paycheck, but why can't you, when it comes to your own music, why can't you just be authentically you and try to make something that is going to resonate with somebody 10, 15 years from now? And that's why I think I've gravitated a lot towards, y'all songs and other artists that are like y'all, because you're so authentic and you're different, and it hits you different than it hits anybody else. And that's just so hard nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's kind of I know it's got to be difficult I'm sure there's people out there that want to do it, and it's difficult because you have to make a choice in a way of like, I'm either going to do what's in my heart or do what I think. I have songs set now. I got 1,500 voice recordings on the phone that I have right now. And, there's songs in there that I think to myself, this could be a current country radio hit, but it's not something that, Matt and I would ever think of even consider recording. Cause it's just like, man, that's just for me, I don't know, maybe the integrity or your music integrity isn't in that song. It's like, that's not what I want people to remember us by.
Yeah.
20 years from now, oh, that was that flash in the pan that, everybody could sing along on the chorus to it. But there also is that thing where people are good at that. I'm not knocking anybody. It's like, hey, if somebody didn't love it, Luke Bryan wouldn't have had a string of number one hits.
Yep. I agree.
And there's an audience for everybody. And if Luke Bryan called me tomorrow and said, hey, would the Reeves Brothers want to come out and open our tour? Hell yes, they would.
Well, I mean, it's just different. It's not that anything's bad. It's different. Bobby even says on the show, the first one we did with him at Seagale, he says that music is made now for 16-year-old girls to 24-year-old girls, or 22, I can't remember. And it's so people will stream it, so people will do whatever. But also, the way that I remember shit is I can't tell you what Luke Bryan's last single was, but I can tell you what his first one that I ever identified with was. So it's where I get why people do it, but at the same time, I want people focusing on, like, I think everyone, including people who don't write music, I think everyone has one great song in them because they're the only person that can tell your life story through a song. And when people actually put life experiences into songs, that's when it resonates with people. And it's where you've got staying power and where people's going to remember you. And that's where I think with you guys, like I said, I just think that it's going to take more people to find out about y'all. And it's sad that like people haven't, but I've not had anybody that I've showed your music to that they haven't been like, fuck yeah. And that's why I'm excited about next week on the 13th. That's why I wanted to give y'all a whole hour to just do y'all, because I really hope the people that are there are like, if they don't know who you are, which is sad if they don't, they're like, why the fuck haven't I known about these guys? These guys are the real deal.
Well, there'll be an audience of people that haven't heard who we are. We promise you, Josh.
well, they're going to love that they got to catch you first at my show.
Well, man, we appreciate it. And we hope that we keep resonating with more people so we can buy a vehicle that wasn't from a buddy of ours' front yard,
Well, fellas, do this real fast. Drop your social media handles. If y'all have got any shows coming up this weekend, tell them where they're at. And because this show's going to come out Friday morning. So, drop all that good stuff so we can get y'all some more followers and some more people checking y'all out.
Awesome, man. Yeah, we our Instagram is the Reeves Brothers, and over on TikTok it's the Reeves Bros. We also, I'm going to plug this. We got a brand new podcast called Brothers of the Road, and there's a lot of crazy tour stories over there. That's what that's all about. Is just about 10 years of all of our journeys and travels and all the craziness and fights we've gotten to with each other, with other people, everything over there. And so, go follow Brothers of the Road. Our first guest is going to be Craig Morgan. He's gonna do our first thing over there. So that's coming up too. And we don't have any shows coming up this weekend because we're going to be in California.
Cult Persona on September 15th. We'll be playing in Columbia. And it's actually at a newer coffee shop. And on the third Friday of every month, weather permitting and considering it not being a holiday, they're doing an art display thing where everybody gets to kind of go be a part of the arts district. And they've contacted us and asked us to play there. So from 4 to 7 p.m. at Cult Persona in Columbia on Friday, September 15th, Matt and I will be there playing a bunch of original
Columbia
tunes and all that.
Columbia, Tennessee. Yeah.
There you go. Well, boys, y'all got to follow me back on TikTok so I can share your shit on there too, and it actually gets some tread. It's JL Terry 1987. It's almost like my Instagram. That way, when I make the video to put this out on Friday to promote it, we can drive more people towards your page, even there too. But dude, I want to thank both of y'all. I want to thank both of y'all for hanging out for a little bit, talking some shit with me. And I look forward to y'all coming next Wednesday. It's gonna be cool, dude. I'm very excited.
Dude, we can't
Josh,
wait. Happy birthday. Happy early birthday. We're happy that we can be there to celebrate.
Oh, dude, we're gonna have a good time. And one more thing too. We do this thing to where every once in a while, and I've got to plan the next one out. And I want to make sure you guys are a part of it. So before we started doing shows at Live Oak, what we would do is we would get some artists and we would sit around an Airbnb table and we record, and it's all us drinking, talking shit, everybody playing songs, laughing, cutting up, just having a damn good time. I definitely, the next one we do, I want to get you guys on. Like this, it's like a private thing, but I think you two would. Everybody would just die. Would you two?
Oh, we'd love it, man.
Well, cool, dude. Well, guys, thank you very much. I'll see you next week. Thank y'all for hanging out. And thank everybody for listening to the Josh Terry podcast. I will catch y'all later.